ENA Dream BBQ is something. So is ENA as a whole, actually. Recently, I decided to give the game a look and play through the demo, as well as watch through the series after seeing a few clips of it, and it's a pretty freaking good game. The game as a whole being a mix between LSD simulator, CDI memes, and a very bad, good acid trip.
I am Dracula!
Point is, ENA as a series has always been heavy on symbolism and less about a sensible story more than underlying themes and motifs. Though recently there has been a pretty strong prevalent theory that a lot of people have been talking about known as the ENA War Theory. One which I kind of agree with, but I feel like there's more to it than just that. Because not only do I have more proof of the ENA War Theory that I haven't heard many people mention, but I also noticed enough repeating themes that I might have my own little sub-theory to add going off of what the War Theory puts down that might just answer how this game is going to end. But first of all, I should probably try my best to explain the contents of Chapter 1 for those who haven't played it or just need a refresher.
お前は遅すぎた。今からそこに滅びた身の始末に行こうにももう俺たち
The game opens up to us waking to a red sky with dark buildings. As you run around aimlessly, you can see a man swimming in the sky, warplanes, and eventually you find your way out through the bed door. It's through there that you're quickly acquainted with Froggy, your partner in crime, with the shared goal of finding the boss, with the implication that we're gonna kill him off. However, we can't get to them until we cross the water and get rid of the smoke that's clogging their lungs. And with the genies being the only ones capable of removing it, we must seek out the lonely door and help people with their tasks to try and find them. Oddly though, by entering the lonely door, whenever we say genie within the area, the word is replaced with the word bathroom, and so we are forced to seek that out instead, which eventually leads us to the Purge event, a sought-out event where everyone is turned into monsters and frantically eat one another, something oddly regarded as a pleasant thing by the other characters, specifically the act of being eaten as stated by several characters, which we will discuss more in later detail. Turned into a beast, we run until we are ate and sent to the void, which luckily leads us to the bathroom. We try to cross and fail, falling into the waters below where we pass through several more puzzles and places, namely the village, the broken palace, and the outworld. The broken palace leads us to the genie Theodora, having since died, despite this still being able to talk and doubting us, believing us to have some kind of hesitation due to not knowing much about the boss yet, reminding us that we're too far away from our physical body and that they can only do what they can to prevent us from returning. However, they make an exception to allow us to see a reality where we achieved our deepest desires. This brings us to a clearly holy room with a living statue at the center. We ruin it with our fan, plunging the room into darkness and escaping through the door, sending us to the outworld. A pure white hellscape that subsequently happens to be the location of the Season 1 ENA videos. Minus the Titanic. We eventually make our way out and try to escape the lonely door, only to just barely not make it, getting entrapped with polygons until we die. However, ENA transfer themselves to a separate mannequin from on the surface, bringing us back to the hub and ready to proceed with the smoke cleared. And that is ENA Dream BBQ Chapter 1. Ever since the game's demo released, many fans have noticed several frequent instances and references to war, to the point I couldn't exactly pin down where the theory originated from. However, the theory as a whole boils down to the following evidence. Obviously, there's the beginning scene where we see planes and bombings from a dead red sky, as well as the game's environment, which is a very desolate place with very little greenery, destroyed buildings everywhere, some still falling and destroying the land, there's blood oceans filled with decapitated legs, and plenty more. ENA's design itself also has what appears to be a military cap. Although the hat is apparently inspired by Nobuo's hat from the Japanese crafting show Dekirokana, you can very clearly see the military influence compared to the original hat, with ENA's hat being a very stiffly curved one with a lip in the front indicating that of a war official. Further confirming this, ENA also has a gun in both the trailer and some supporter edition sketches, though in the trailer it appears to have an orange tip indicating it to be a cap gun. There's quite a few smaller World War II references, the most notable being a reference to the photo of VJ Day in Times Square as seen in the trailer. The wide majority of characters and NPCs you talk to inherently dislike ENA from the get-go, the most important and talked about scene being the one with the vending machine man who refuses to serve ENA, to which we get this important scene.
Guys, wait! I'm not doing what you say I'm doing! I'm not doing anything! I'm not doing anything at all!
Bullet casings, we get the red sky again. I'm not doing anything at all. This scene has been for a lot of people the smoking gun due to how instantly they explode like that, with a lot of people pulling parallels to PTSD in that regard, especially given Meanie, that's the blue-yellow side by the way, seems far more terrified than angry, a sudden shift we don't see much of other than here and in the Purge event, where she gets a similar way about it. That's the main evidence for the theory though, which I noticed a few more things to add to the pile that I noticed haven't been brought up very much. Some being more direct references, but I feel like it's important to consider that ENA as a series appears to be very motif and theme based. Meaning if we're looking for what the series plans for the future, it's important to mention both literal things that explain why certain things may happen, and metaphorical evidence explaining what things mean thematically within the world, which I'll be mentioning in detail when I get to my sub-theory that ties into this whole war theory. First off, the wide majority of references tend to focus on World War II in particular. Now, although ENA has had characters that talk in different languages for a long time, that World War II, during and after it, has been generally considered by historians as the melting pot era in the Americas. Pretty much meaning that it was a massive time when cultures mixed thanks to mass immigration to the US, bringing differing beliefs, cuisine, accents, and words, especially given that everyone talked in completely different languages but still understand one another. In that same regard, many words in one language can often sound like a completely different word in another language. For example, pain in English means the sensation of being hurt, while in French it's a word for bread, or for a less exact example, in English, embarrassed is to feel shame, while in Spanish, embarazada means to be pregnant. These confusions causing translation errors pretty easily. Throughout the game, while we are trying to find the genie, as discussed before, your words get changed from genie to bathroom every time ENA tries to say it or even think it, and everyone takes this as them meaning the actual bathroom. However, oddly, ENA never tries to explain this, especially to Froggy. Even once they are able to say genie again, they still tell Froggy that the problem with the bathroom has been solved, and never inform them about the whole, they couldn't say the word genie thing. Seeing ENA never corrects or tells them, and once they're able to say genie again, they still don't, other characters also refer to the genie as the bathroom even when they are out as well, mainly Kane, which makes it seem like a shared translation error among all of them. I'm not sure how valid this comparison is, given, like I said before, the multi-language thing is also shared to the main series in general, but does make the whole bathroom thing make a lot more sense. So it's a headcanon I want to share. For more concrete comparisons with war, during the start of the game we meet with a stuck-up receptionist. As they call us poor and a bunch of other things, one of the main things they call us is pink-collared, which is a term apparently used to describe military jobs deemed traditionally feminine, or most commonly given to women rather than men, such as battle nurses, which is an interesting thing to call ENA in particular. There's also the fact that they refer to us as a broke slug several times along the pink-collared comment, as after World War II, and after most wars in general, many veterans struggle to reintegrate into normal society and jobs, to the point that there is a poverty epidemic within vets to this day, meaning this could be a direct jab based on that. In the Outworld, as you wander around, you may find this massive sinking boat on the edge of the area, which is very obviously modeled off the Titanic. One of the more important moments of the game is the Purge event, which we'll be talking about the symbolism and repeating themes of later. But overall, a massive amount of characters are excited about it and want to die in it by being eaten, which isn't the only time that death is shown, as pretty much every NPC is oddly accepting of death and sees it as commonplace. Think the witches and the bridge guy, which both mention having died several times, which almost seems like to everyone here that life is so bad everyone wants to escape to the next life and hope it's better. The only exception seem to be ENA, who is notably unsettled by the Purge event once they realize they are there. This also lines up with later when the genie Theodora mentions us having hesitation about seeking out the boss, which again we are implied to be seeking them out to kill them. If so, then it seems like ENA is the only one who truly sees death as a negative, whereas everyone else is seeking it out and are excited for when it inevitably occurs. And lastly, at the end of the game, we see ENA getting stuck in the lonely door, but is able to escape by somehow transferring themselves into one of the many blank mannequins scattered throughout the hub area. This in itself has led to the theory that every mannequin is an empty vessel for ENAs. But more importantly, in a more thematic way, it shows just how replaceable ENA is on their mission, which can easily be related to soldiers being generally seen as replaceable within war itself. Anyways, with that, I feel like there's a lot to the war theory, and I really do agree with it, at least when it comes to Dream BBQ ENA specifically, but I actually noticed a lot of details that paint an even deeper picture of Dream BBQ and what we might see in the future that makes a lot of sense under the lens that there was, at the very least, some kind of war, whether ENA fought in it or not. And so let me introduce you to the Famine Theory. First off, there's a very clear economic problem within the world, both in a literal sense and within symbolism and imagery. We of course have the receptionist who's mad that we're poor, but other than that we have the witches who give you a motherboard out of their wallet instead of cash, even explicitly avoiding saying money when the job starts. In fact, when most wallets are drawn, they have notes or dollars peeking out of them, whereas the witches notably don't. You could argue that maybe it's a coin purse, not a wallet, but even so, there's nothing peeking out really. When they are searching it, you can hear what you might think is the clinking of coins,
Tucked away in my pocket.
But remember that the currency isn't metal, it's chocolate. They're chocolate coins that are the money of this universe, meaning they wouldn't clink around with a metallic sound, it should instead sound like a deep clicky sound. In fact, let's listen to that audio again.
These do I've got tucked away in my pocket.
Notice how it just sounds like a hollow metal piece being dragged against something. Something like that finger they keep brushing back and forth in there.
Goodies do I've got tucked away in my pocket.
It's very clearly one sound, not the sound of multiple things hitting it. Meaning the only thing in this wallet is that motherboard that she gives us. Her wallet is empty. On top of that, the only character who gives you money when you complete your job is Shoryo, who will be pretty important to this theory later on when we talk about the actual famine for obvious reasons. But even then, the amount of money we're given for saving 4 of their pets is only enough to buy from a vending machine. To buy mayo from a vending machine, which I don't think you're gonna be shoveling down your mouth when it's snack time. The only other characters that give you a job is Hoarder Alex, who when completed will refuse to reward you only for them to be put to sleep like Old Yeller, and the Shaman, who just makes a board member that you need to feed dirt. So pretty much no characters seem to have money, let alone be willing to trade them for your goods and services. Everyone constantly mentions work or the boss throughout the game, and overall having a job is clearly seen as an extremely desirable thing. But in that same regard, there aren't many employed people. For example, the taxi is gone for only a few seconds and the economy is instantly at risk. And despite there being several bus stations, no such bus exists, except for an Easter egg, but they seem to be currently unemployed.
I'm the buzz!
How are you gonna get down? Not to mention the Purge event quite literally costs you an arm or a leg. And where the game starts is an area filled with slot machines stated to feed on hope and having literal mouths. So why is an in-universe recession so important? That's because there's a lot to show that there is a famine, as there is a near constant motif about eating. The most obvious example is of course Shoryo. During his quest, he's upset about his pets, whom he calls his babies, and seems to care about. But upon collecting them, he says, "Oh, thank God, I was starving. Now I can have a good meal," and makes it clear they ate them despite earlier calling them his pets and babies. Prior to completing the mission, if you keep talking with him, it's revealed that he named them breakfast, lunch, brunch, and elevenses, which pretty much means a snack break, meaning he bought and took care of these pets to fatten them up and eat them later. But why now? It also seems like somebody else knew, as Shoryo himself mentions that someone opened the door and let them out. Maybe to have them escape? Though in a more symbolic sense, we have lots and lots of allusions and references to eating near constantly throughout the game, specifically with the idea of people being eaten and food in general. First of all, Theodora has a line of dialogue right before they send us to the smoke room no matter what route you find her in. Before she takes you to a reality where ENA achieve their deepest desires, she says, "Remember ENA, all it takes is a place and the right food," which is a pretty odd thing to say. Why do we need a place and the right food? This starts to make sense when you look at the game's constant references to being eaten. Obviously, we have the Purge event where everyone is turned into monsters to eat each other, which opens with a scene of seeing someone eat someone else, but during the party, several characters say that being eaten is the whole point, and seem to look forward to being on the menu. When you get eaten, the human-like ENA form is seen drooling from one corner of their mouth, and it's also not lost on me that after you're eaten, you're brought to a giant bathroom, which as you would be after being digested. Less on the nose though, right at the start of the game when you get ready to enter the lonely door for the first time, the humanoid body making up the door eats you in order for you to enter. So does the seal house, whose tent has you enter through the tongue into its mouth, and the life orb in the sky has you get eaten alive and then seemingly digested. There's also more in the trailer itself as well, as the trailer starts out with a chained shut mouth in the top left corner, and another weird open mouth that looks like a mix between the seal house from earlier and Froggy but red. Actually, while we're on this topic, this has nothing to do with the theory, but I just wanted to say that on this shot, the triangle looks exactly the same as the one ENA gets stuck in at the end of the game, so I'm pretty sure that this is Froggy, likely having gotten trapped in one of the other doors himself, just not being able to escape in the same way ENA was. Back on the famine though, these constant eating references aren't limited to ENA Dream BBQ like most of the war references are, because there are 2 episodes that were during the production of ENA Dream BBQ that happen to be the only ones including this motif as well. Potluck being after the announcement, and Temptation Stairway, which although was before the announcement, Joel himself claimed that they were going to try and make the full game and release as a surprise, meaning it was definitely being worked on to some capacity before the announcement video, seeing as there originally wasn't going to be an announcement, especially given all the final designs this teaser had. Point being, in the episodes prior, there aren't many of the weird mouth imagery, but Temptation Stairway and Power of Potluck both suddenly start having it during the same period that the game begins to be worked on. In Temptation Stairway, when ENA finds the dog observatory, they find a tank circling the area. The tank shooting mouths that look eerily similar to the chained mouths found in the Dream BBQ trailer. And this mouth then spits out the shepherd. The shepherd refuses to let them pass until ENA gives them a Turon, which causes them both to dance while chanting the food's name. The same chanting and dancing that ENA does when first being given the food. Seems like it's pretty important, and I imagine it wouldn't be hard to be excited should there be, say, a famine! And thanks to being gifted this Turon, the shepherd makes an exception. The shepherd is also important because they're the only other character to reference war in the series. On top of the tank, they also reference war in their dialogue, saying that ENA lost the battle even if they won the war, before disintegrating into more of these mouthballs. Going through there, they find many bowing mannequins in a massive area within each intersection. Looking around, they find a massive banana in the distance, which when approached, we are called a disgusting banana worshipper. Does this mean that all of the mannequins are also disgusting banana worshippers? Were they worshipping for food? It isn't hard to make that comparison given how instantly they assumed that's why we were here. In the next area of the episode, they walk through a trail of cat heads with gaping open mouths, which ENA must enter through the mouth of. There's that being eaten symbolism again, which leads them to the desert. And lastly, on the very end of the episode, Mooney turns out to have gotten there first and be given their wish already. Their wish, as it turns out, is to be thinner, which usually implies weighing less due to not eating as much. For this to be a goal or wish, this implies that the area in which Season 1 ENA and Mooney came from, aka the Outworld, likely did not experience whatever famine or war that the outside world has. Which makes sense, as if there was a famine that ENA was experiencing during Temptation Hallway, I doubt they would have given that Turon so willingly, nor the mystery man that gave it. But seeing as the shepherd is only within the Great Runa's land, of which only floats over the Outworld every 10,000 years, that's why she cared about it so much that she was bribed out of her one job, whereas ENA just seems to like dancing to the word Turon and has no real qualms with giving it away. And that was just Temptation's Stairway, because there's also many eating references within the power of Potluck. Most obvious one to get out of the way is the name of the episode itself, Power of Potluck. A potluck being an event where everyone brings food at the same time to share amongst each other, which again implies that ENA is in a state where food isn't a concern for her and needs to be stowed away. The sad mask of the episode has this gaping large mouth, but more importantly, we see this crying statue that bears a striking resemblance to the lonely door, of whom opens their mouth causing another person to come out. Another crying statue of whom talks on their behalf, and also projects mouths again similar to the ones we've seen in the trailer. There aren't many more references up until the very end after Mooney gets upset with ENA for not wrong running, where ENA gets visibly confused upon seeing this character, who a few seconds ago was visibly flat, is notably plump and undulating, and like a snake pushes the lump up to their mouth, unzips their lips, and spits out a crying man. In response to this, Mooney, who is also confused, snatches the man from their mouth and shoves them into their own eye hole, and the episode ends. But given Mooney's size, their eye hole likely leads to the same place as their mouth, especially with how hollow it seems to be. Point is, that's an odd amount of the same person-eating-person imagery for it to be a coincidence, right? Especially given that's only been since ENA Dream BBQ has been in production, as again, earlier episodes have no real references like these ones do. So what exactly does this mean for the final game? Well, just one thing. Have you ever wondered why it's called ENA Dream BBQ? Well, if there really is a famine going on, then that explains that really easily. They are dreaming of the Dream BBQ because there is no food. But what does that have to do with the boss? Well, from the little dialogue we've had about him, we have two interesting quotes I'd like to look at. After meeting with the genie and taking care of the smoke, Froggy calls us to check in. After being reassured that the bathroom thing has been taken care of, ENA tells Froggy that the boss will be down the drain in no time. And right at the start of the game, Froggy says that we're running out of time to put that dead meat in its place. If we look at these comments under the lens of the Famine Theory, I don't think they're just gonna kill the boss, but they're going to eat him. But what's with all the comments about us being late, or the receptionist saying that the boss isn't even born yet? Well, you know how they mentioned putting that dead meat in its place? Yeah, that's not a jab. Given how many people are making jokes about them being the boss and saying that we're too late and that they aren't born, I think that's because the characters know that the boss is already dead and the new one hasn't been born to take its place. It's just that the characters don't know that we aren't looking for the new boss. We're looking for his body to cook him up into some tasty, tasty burgers. This especially lines up with the fleshing comment, given that when we die, we are brought to the bathroom. Given the context, as this is right after leaving having the bathroom on either route, and right after talking with Froggy about dealing with the bathroom situation, it's very clear that this is referring to a toilet. So if the boss is going to be eaten, that comment makes a lot of sense, as they too will reach the bathroom and be down the drain like we almost were a moment ago. He is cooked, or at least is going to be, because ENA is trying to unbury the old boss and make him into the Dream BBQ for the people. And that is why it's called ENA Dream BBQ. Leave your tip at the door, my friends, and see you next time. Bye-bye!